Queen Aurelia stood in the center of the solar hall, her boots slick with someone else's blood. She did not know whose. The golden armor on her slim frame gleamed under the towering arches, polished and flawless, as if it had not just witnessed a massacre. Her long brown hair fell loose beneath a delicate crown, catching the light while her jaw stayed tight with control. Behind her, a disciplined line of soldiers stood with their backs to her, weapons lowered, waiting. Waiting for her to speak. Aurelia's heart hammered, not from fear of rebellion or war, but from the sharp, twisting pain low in her abdomen that refused to fade. It had started hours ago, right after the human was taken away. She hid the tremor in her breath and lifted her chin. "I will address you shortly," she said, her voice steady, regal, practiced. The soldiers struck their armor in unison and marched out, leaving the hall vast and echoing. Alone, Aurelia finally let her composure crack. She pressed a hand to her stomach, eyes narrowing in confusion rather than weakness. Her species did not feel pain like this without cause. She knew every rhythm of her body, every cycle, every sign. This was none of them. Aurelia turned toward the towering windows, where 3 suns burned through violet clouds. Beyond them lay the battlefield where she had personally captured the human warrior alive. That had not been the plan. The human's name was Ethan. He had stood alone against her honor guard, bleeding, defiant, and smiling like death itself was a joke. When she disarmed him, he had laughed, not in madness, but in wonder. "You fight like you care," he had said, staring up at her. "That's rare." No one spoke to the Queen of the Virelian conquered like that. She should have executed him. Instead, she ordered him restrained and brought to her private chamber for questioning. That decision would not stop haunting her. Aurelia closed her eyes, memories pressing in without permission. Ethan chained to the grav ring, bruised but unbroken. His dark eyes studying her armor, her crown, her face, not with lust or fear, but curiosity. "You're not a monster," he told her softly. "They lied to us." She had felt anger then, real anger, dangerous anger. Yet she had stayed. They had spoken for hours, of war, of earth, of Virelian tradition, of duty heavy enough to crush the soul. At one point, he had collapsed from blood loss. She remembered catching him. Remembered how warm he was. Aurelia's eyes snapped open. "No," she whispered. That had been nothing, merely physical proximity. Her species did not reproduce through contact, not like humans. Conception required ritual, intent, genetic alignment. At least that was what the archives said. A sharp wave of dizziness forced her to grip a column. Her crown chimed softly as it detected biological distress. Moments later, the hall doors parted. Lysa, her chief geneticist, entered with urgency written across her pale features. "You summon me, your radiance." Aurelia did not turn. "Run a scan," she said quietly, "full internal." Lysa hesitated. "Here." "Yes." The device hummed, projecting translucent symbols across Aurelia's armor. Lysa's professional calm shattered within seconds. "That's not possible," Lysa breathed. Aurelia felt ice crawl up her spine. "Speak." Lysa swallowed. "There is cellular divergence, rapid growth, royal markers are active." Silence fell heavy and absolute. "You are saying," Aurelia said slowly, "that I am carrying offspring." "Yes," Lysa whispered, "but that is not the impossible part." Aurelia finally turned, eyes blazing gold. "Explain." Lysa's hands shook. "The secondary genetic signature is not Virelian." The world seemed to tilt. "Identify it." Lysa looked up, terrified. "It's human." The pain in Aurelia's body suddenly made sense. So did the warmth she remembered. So did the way Ethan's blood had reacted to her touch, glowing faintly before either of them noticed. An accident. A biological anomaly. A union no law, prophecy, or science had ever predicted. Aurelia laughed once, sharp and broken. If the council learns of this, she said, they will demand my execution. And the child, Lysa added quietly. Aurelia's hand curled protectively over her abdomen. Far below the palace, alarms began to sound. The human prisoner was missing. And somehow deep in her core, Aurelia knew. This war had just become something far more dangerous. And far more human. Aurelia's golden boots echoed across the vast hall as she moved toward the palace balcony. Her fingers were still pressed to the swelling in her abdomen, her mind racing faster than her heart. The winds from the triple suns whipped her hair into her face, but she didn't notice. Below, the courtyard was in chaos. Human silhouettes darted through the shadows, alert and armed. And one of them, one figure moved with a strange, calm confidence that made her pulse stutter. It was Ethan. He was supposed to be locked in the containment vault, a prisoner of war. Yet here he was, walking through her soldiers as if they were statues, unafraid, his dark eyes scanning the palace like a predator in a garden. Aurelia's first instinct was fury. He had disobeyed, endangered the city, and somehow he had survived every trap she had set. But beneath that anger was a new, heavier sensation, fear. For him, for what she had felt in the aftermath of their contact, for the life growing inside her that was impossibly, miraculously human. She leapt from the balcony in a calculated drop, landing silently behind a row of marble columns. Her armor clanged softly, betraying her presence, but Ethan didn't flinch. He looked over his shoulder, and for the first time, Aurelia noticed a flicker in his expression, a mixture of worry and something she couldn't name. "You shouldn't be here," she said, stepping forward. Her voice rang over the courtyard, crisp as a blade. "I'm here because I didn't want you to be alone," he replied, calm, too calm. His gaze flicked to the edge of her golden armor, then to the crown that symbolized everything she had fought for. "You're carrying something dangerous, something unprecedented." Aurelia froze. You know. "I saw the readings when I touched you," he admitted, his voice low. "It's not just human curiosity anymore. Whatever happened between us, it created life." Her knees weakened, though she forced herself to stay upright. The words hung in the air, impossibly intimate, impossibly real. She had known instinctively, but hearing it confirmed tore through her like fire. "You don't understand the consequences," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "This is forbidden, the council will." Ethan stepped closer, ignoring the soldiers who had begun to converge on them. "The council doesn't decide what's inside you," he said. "Not anymore, you do." Aurelia's chest tightened. She had fought for centuries to maintain control, to guard her body, her choices, her throne. And now, here was a human, a mortal, reminding her that control was no longer possible. "I never wanted this," she admitted, the first real vulnerability she had shown in decades. "I didn't choose this." "Neither did I," Ethan said softly, lifting a hand. "But that doesn't make it any less real or any less ours." Her heart thumped against her ribs like a war drum. The soldiers began to shout orders, but Aurelia didn't hear them. All she could hear was him, Ethan, the improbable human who had survived her, challenged her, and now changed her life in ways no one could have foreseen. Then a shrill alarm split the air, cutting through the moment like a knife. Aurelia stiffened. "What now?" she demanded. Ethan's jaw tightened. "The council, they've detected the anomaly. They'll send enforcers. We don't have long." Her mind raced. Escape was impossible. The palace was a fortress designed to crush rebellion. Yet her instincts screamed that staying meant risking not just her life, but the life inside her. "I can't leave," she said, voice shaking. "I can't let them." Ethan grabbed her hand, strong and unyielding, pulling her behind a shadowed archway. "Then we won't leave alone, you and me. We survive this together." Aurelia stared at him, golden eyes wide with disbelief. "Together." He gave her a crooked smile, half challenge, half promise. "Yes, together. If the world wants to destroy what we've created, then we'll fight. But first, we survive the night." Her chest ached. Fear, anger, desire, all tangled in a mess she had never anticipated. And through it, a small, defiant spark of hope flickered. Somewhere deep inside, she felt the life within her stir, responding to her fear, her adrenaline, her presence. And for the first time, Aurelia wondered if fate had been cruel, or just brilliant. Because the human warrior who had been her prisoner was now the only one who could keep them both alive. And the real war, the one that mattered most, was just beginning. The shadow of enforcers grew closer, their footsteps heavy and unyielding. Aurelia's fingers tightened around Ethan. "Lead me," she said. He nodded, eyes dark with determination. "Hold on, this is going to hurt, and I promise we'll survive it." The first clash of steel echoed from the courtyard below. And Aurelia realized something terrifying and thrilling all at once. She was no longer the hunter. She was something far more vulnerable and far more alive. The life inside her shifted, almost as if it understood. And it whispered in a language only she could feel, "We fight, together." The palace corridors were a labyrinth of cold marble and silent shadows, but Aurelia moved like a storm. Every step echoed in the cavernous halls, yet she barely felt it. Her mind was consumed by the unthinkable, the impossible, what was growing inside her. Her golden armor pressed uncomfortably against her abdomen, the swelling subtle but undeniable, a constant, insistent reminder of the human life intertwining with her own. Ethan led the way, nimble despite his wounds, darting past guards and automated sentries. His presence beside her was impossible to ignore. The faint scent of him, the warmth radiating from his body, made her pulse stutter. And yet she could not allow herself to falter. Not now. "Stop," she hissed suddenly, gripping his arm. He froze instantly. "What is it?" he whispered. Aurelia's eyes scanned the corridor ahead. There, etched into the walls, were Virelian glyphs she hadn't noticed before, ancient warnings, ritual scripts for concealing life, for controlling what should not exist. Her stomach lurched. "They track anomalies," she said grimly. "They'll sense what's inside me." Ethan's dark eyes narrowed. "Then we hide it." "Hide it," she scoffed, though her voice trembled. "I am a queen. I cannot hide from them. I cannot hide from myself." "Maybe not," he admitted. "But we can stay ahead. We can survive tonight, and then—" His voice faltered. He looked at her with something she had never seen in him, fear, real fear. Aurelia felt her chest tighten, and for a fleeting moment she wished she could deny it all. Wished she could undo the accident that had fused their fates. But she couldn't. The truth throbbed inside her like a heartbeat she could not stop. They reached the lower courtyard where moonlight, or at least the twin moons, fell in silver stripes over cold stone. A patrol rounded the corner. Soldiers in black and gold, moving with the precision of war machines. Ethan moved first, pulling Aurelia behind a low column. His hand brushed hers. The contact sent a jolt through her body, warmth spreading to places she hadn't realized were starved of human touch. Her heart slammed against her ribs as if trying to escape, as if it knew what was coming and wanted her to survive it. "On my mark," Ethan whispered. "Run and don't look back." Aurelia's mind screamed orders. Run, fight, protect herself, protect the child, protect him. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw the unshakable certainty of someone who had faced death and smiled. She followed him anyway. The fight was a blur. Shadows clashed with metal, sparks flew from blades and energy pulses. Aurelia moved with a grace born of centuries of training, her armor catching the moonlight in a golden blaze. Yet every strike she avoided, every soldier she disarmed, was accompanied by a deep, throbbing pain in her abdomen. She faltered once, doubled over for a fraction of a second, and Ethan was there instantly, steadying her with a firm grip. "You're stronger than they imagined," he said between gasps. Aurelia's lips twitched, half in amusement, half in disbelief. "Stronger," she rasped. "I'm carrying." She caught herself, fear slicing through her pride. She could not reveal the truth, not yet, not until she understood it herself. Ethan's gaze lingered on her anyway, as if he sensed the secret she hadn't voiced. There was a raw intensity there, a bond forming that neither of them could name, and yet both of them could feel. When the last patrol fell silent, when the echoes of their footsteps faded into the night, Aurelia sank to one knee, breathing hard. Her armor scraped against the stone, heavy and unfamiliar now. Ethan knelt beside her, hands steady, unjudging, offering support she didn't know she needed. "You okay?" he asked softly. I will be, she admitted, though the words felt hollow. The life inside her stirred violently, a sudden, urgent movement that made her gasp. She pressed her hand to her belly instinctively, and for the first time she truly felt it, not just as a consequence, but as a presence. Something alive, something calling to her. Ethan leaned closer, eyes dark with concern and something else, something she hadn't dared imagine. Aurelia, we need to keep moving. The council will not wait. She nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She felt the child move again, and it startled her, not fear, but awe. A tiny heartbeat answering hers, echoing in rhythm with the warmth of the human beside her. And for the first time since the impossibility had begun, Aurelia allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could survive this. They were alone in the night, hunted, vulnerable, yet tethered to each other by something neither politics nor prophecy could touch. And somewhere deep in the shadows of the palace, eyes watched them, eyes that knew exactly what had been born tonight. Aurelia shivered, not from cold, but from the realization that the war had changed forever. And what she carried would change everything. Because the council would stop at nothing to take it from her. And Ethan might be the only one who could help her protect it. But could she trust him with what was already part of her? The question lingered in the darkness as the distant sounds of pursuit grew closer. And the life inside her shifted once more, small but insistent, as if whispering, "We are not afraid." Aurelia and Ethan crouched behind the crumbling walls of the palace's lower battlements. Smoke from the fires of the courtyard drifted through the broken arches, carrying the acrid scent of burning metal and scorched stone. Her golden armor, once radiant and proud, was now scratched and dulled, streaked with grime. Her hand instinctively went to her abdomen, and she flinched at the subtle but undeniable pressure that pulsed beneath her fingers. "This way," Ethan whispered, peering through a gap in the wall. "There's a service tunnel. It leads under the city. They won't find us there." Aurelia followed silently, her mind a storm of fear and disbelief. Every step reminded her of what she carried, the impossible, forbidden life entwined with her own. Her body had begun reacting in ways no archive could explain. Waves of warmth, sudden nausea, and strange, vivid dreams she hadn't shared with anyone, not even Lysa. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked, noticing her hesitation. Aurelia's voice caught. "It moves inside me constantly." Ethan's expression softened. "You mean the child?" "Yes," she admitted, the word strange on her tongue. "It's alive, not just in the sense of biology, but I feel it, responding to me." He reached for her hand, brushing his thumb across her knuckles. The contact sent a tremor through her that had nothing to do with fear or exhaustion. "Aurelia, that's incredible." "Incredible," she snapped, though not unkindly. "It's impossible, it's dangerous if the council learns." "They'll try to take it," he said bluntly. "We both know it, but I'm not letting that happen." Aurelia stared at him, the weight of his promise settling over her like a shield. She didn't want to hope. She had been a queen for decades, and hope had always been a luxury she couldn't afford. Yet the warmth in Ethan's eyes, the sheer human defiance, the determination, made it hard to resist. The tunnel was dark, narrow, and damp. Aurelia moved with caution, her armor scraping softly against the stone walls. Ethan guided her, but his eyes never left hers, alert for danger and yet curious. "You're different from anyone I've ever known," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Not just strong, not just remarkable, but human enough to care." Aurelia's chest tightened. She wanted to argue, to reject the intimacy, but her body betrayed her. The life inside her shifted, pressing insistently against her, and she gasped. "You feel it too," she whispered. Ethan nodded, his expression unreadable. "It's part of you, and maybe part of me now too." They emerged from the tunnel into a hidden alcove beneath the city, the faint glow of bioluminescent plants casting an eerie, calming light. Aurelia sank to her knees, exhaustion weighing on her like lead. The child moved again, and for a moment she could not distinguish her own heartbeat from its tiny, insistent pulse. Ethan knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone," he said softly. "I'll be here, we'll face whatever comes." Her eyes filled with tears she hadn't realized were there. She had spent centuries guarding herself, her body, her crown, and her throne. And now, in the shadow of the impossible, she realized that for the first time, she had no defense except trust. "I don't know if I can protect it," she whispered, "or even survive this." "You will," he said firmly, "because we'll do it together every step, every danger, every battle." For a long moment, neither spoke. The city above groaned under the weight of war, but in this quiet alcove, they existed in a fragile bubble of something almost sacred. Oralia's hand moved to Ethan's, hesitant but searching. His fingers closed over hers, warm and grounding. Then the child moved again, stronger this time. Oralia gasped, pressing a hand to her abdomen. The movement was not just physical, it was emotional, almost as if it recognized Ethan, almost as if it approved. A strange, impossible laughter escaped her lips. "It knows you," she whispered. Ethan's lips twitched into a smile. "Then it already likes me better than I deserve." The moment broke when a distant explosion shook the ground beneath them. The Council's enforcers were closing in, relentless and unyielding. Oralia stood abruptly, golden armor catching the faint glow of the plants, determination hardening her features. "Then we move," she said. "We fight and we survive." Ethan followed without question. They were no longer just a queen and a human warrior. They were protectors of a life the galaxy would never have imagined. And deep inside her, the child shifted once more, insistent and alive, as if whispering its own promise. "We will not be taken." The tunnel ahead was dark, but Oralia didn't falter. She tightened her grip on Ethan's hand and whispered under her breath, "Let them come. They'll find nothing but fire and gold." And together, they disappeared into the shadows. The city above shuddered with the first hint of a storm, and Oralia realized, with a mixture of fear and awe, that nothing would ever be the same. Because they were no longer running. They were hunting, and the life inside her was already changing the rules of the war. The hidden alcove smelled of damp stone and faint ozone, a scent Oralia would never forget. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard, the child inside her shifting insistently with every pulse of her heart. It was more than a life now. It was a presence, a living weight that demanded attention, and she could feel it stretching and stretching, growing stronger with every passing moment. Ethan crouched beside her, checking the strap on his sidearm. He hadn't once let go of her hand. "We can't stay here long," he said. "They'll track us, especially with that." His eyes flicked to her abdomen, careful, respectful, yet unflinching. Oralia swallowed, feeling a rush of conflicting emotions. Shame, pride, fear, desire. The child inside her had become a constant heartbeat, and with it came a new, frightening clarity. She could not fight this war alone, not physically, not emotionally. She had always been a queen, untouchable, commanding armies with her voice alone. But now she was something else, something human. "I know," she said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "But every step we take, every move we make, it's not just me anymore." Ethan's dark eyes met hers. "And that's why you're not alone. I'm here. We face this together." Her chest tightened at the raw honesty in his voice. Every word carried the weight of someone who had stared death in the face and decided to fight anyway. And somehow, somewhere, deep inside, the life inside her stirred again, pressing insistently against her hand. "Then we need a plan," she said, her voice sharper now, queenly again despite the storm raging inside her. "We can't just keep running. The Council will hunt us forever if they realize what exists in me." Ethan nodded. "There's a safe haven. Old Virelian archives under the city, forgotten tunnels, protected by wards the Council no longer patrols. If we can reach it, you'll be hidden long enough to figure this out." Her stomach dropped. "Figure this out?" she repeated, a tremor in her voice. "Do you understand what you're asking? I'm carrying something impossible, something that could change everything, and you want me to hide it." "I want to keep you alive," he said simply. "And whatever it is, it deserves a chance." Oralia's pulse quickened. The weight of the child, the heat, the impossible sense of presence. It moved again, and this time stronger, almost like a heartbeat she could feel with her hand. Fear surged through her, not for herself, but for it, for the life she hadn't chosen, yet could not deny. She looked at Ethan, really looked at him, for the first time since he had entered her life. There was a vulnerability there, a raw, human defiance, and a strange intimacy that made her heart ache. She realized the truth. She could not fight alone. She did not want to. "Lead the way," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I will follow you, and I trust you." Ethan's eyes widened slightly at her words, but he only nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond forming between them. They moved together through the shadows, silent, careful, every sense alert. The city above roared with the distant echoes of pursuit, council enforcers, relentless, merciless, determined to find what they did not understand. Hours passed. The tunnels wound beneath the city, cold and silent. Orelia's body ached, the pressure inside her growing heavier, more insistent. She pressed a hand to her abdomen again, whispering softly, "Stay with me, please, survive with me." Ethan's hand covered hers, steady and warm. "We will, I swear it." The child shifted once more, violently this time, and Aurelia stumbled. Ethan caught her instantly, pressing her against him, holding her close. Their foreheads touched, and for the briefest moment, all the chaos, all the fear, all the war faded. "I feel it," he murmured. "It's alive, strong, fierce, and it's ours." Aurelia's breath caught. "Ours," she whispered, almost afraid to admit it aloud. "Yes," he said firmly, eyes locked on hers. "Don't fight it, don't fight us, we survive together." Somewhere deep in the tunnels, an old ward pulsed faintly, recognizing the royal signature she carried. Aurelia froze, instinctively shielding herself. Ethan looked at her, a question in his eyes. "They'll know we're here soon," she said, voice low, but determination hardening in her chest. "But if we can hold them off, we can live, we can protect this life." Ethan nodded. "Then let's not waste any time." They moved on, deeper into the forgotten tunnels, the weight of the impossible life growing inside Aurelia, pressing on her with every step. But for the first time, she felt something she hadn't in centuries: hope. Not just hope for herself, hope for the child, hope for the impossible bond that had formed between a queen and a human warrior. And as the tunnel narrowed and the ward glowed brighter ahead, Aurelia knew, with every heartbeat, that the war was no longer just about kingdoms. It was about survival. It was about family. It was about something the galaxy had never seen before. And it was coming for them all. The hidden archives of the city were older than Aurelia had ever imagined. Dusty, vaulted chambers stretched far beneath the surface, lined with walls of etched stone and glowing bioluminescent fungi. Aurelia ran her fingers over the carvings as she followed Ethan, the faint hum of old wards pulsing through the air. Every vibration in her body echoed back from the life growing inside her, small but insistent, like a second heartbeat. "This place," she whispered, awe creeping into her voice, "I didn't even know it existed." "It's been abandoned for centuries," Ethan said, scanning the shadows with sharp, careful eyes. "Perfect hiding spot, but we can't linger. They'll detect the anomaly eventually." Aurelia nodded, but her attention was on the soft, persistent movement inside her. Each shift brought with it a wave of warmth, and every time she looked at Ethan, she realized she could feel it responding, not just to her, but to him too. "Ethan," she began hesitantly, "do you feel that?" He glanced at her, brow furrowed. "Feel what?" "The life inside me," she said, pressing a hand to her abdomen. "It's reacting. I don't understand it, but it's aware. It knows you're here." He looked down, then slowly placed a hand over hers. She felt the pulse beneath his fingers, a subtle energy that matched the rhythm of the child's tiny movements. I feel it," he admitted, voice low and awed. "It's alive, and it's incredible." Aurelia's chest tightened. She had expected fear, disgust, uncertainty, anything but this quiet reverence, this human marvel. And yet the warmth spreading from his hand seemed to calm her, steady her. She realized then that the impossible bond forming wasn't just hers, it was theirs. They moved deeper into the chamber, winding through corridors lined with forgotten tomes and relics of her ancestors. Aurelia kept her senses sharp, alert for traps or patrols, but the strange stillness of the archives gave her a fleeting sense of safety, a temporary reprieve from the chaos of the outside world. "I can feel it more strongly here," she murmured, her fingers pressed against her armor. It's trying to communicate. Ethan knelt beside her, studying her intently. Communicate. Oralia nodded, eyes wide. Not with words, not yet, but with sensations, pressure, warmth, movement. It reacts to me, to you. I think it's learning already. He swallowed hard, and she noticed the flicker of emotion crossing his face. Fear, wonder, something dangerously close to hope. Then we're not alone, he whispered. Ever, not really. Oralia's lips twitched into a small, incredulous smile. She had faced countless battles, led armies, brokered peace, and yet this terrified her in ways she had never anticipated. Ethan, she said quietly, if the council finds us here. They won't, he said, voice firm. I promise we protect it. No one will take it from you. Her chest ached at his words, a strange, foreign longing curling in her stomach. She had always been the unshakable queen, untouchable and disciplined. But here, in the dim light of the archives, she felt fragile and human, and the child within her seemed to respond to that vulnerability, wriggling gently as if acknowledging her fear and courage at once. Suddenly, a tremor ran through the archives. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the hum of the old wards flared. Oralia's heart leapt into her throat. They've found us, Ethan said, rising swiftly and drawing a blade from his belt. His gaze hardened. Get ready. Oralia straightened as best she could, armor clanking softly. The pressure inside her shifted violently, almost as if the child was reacting to the danger, surging in instinctive defense. She pressed a hand to her belly, whispering softly, Stay calm, stay with me. The entrance to the chamber exploded inward. Council enforcers poured in, their eyes glowing faintly as they detected the anomaly. Oralia's pulse quickened, and the child shifted again, sending a sharp wave of warmth and energy through her entire body. She realized, with a mixture of fear and awe, that it wasn't just reacting, it was preparing. Ethan moved in front of her, positioning himself like a shield. Stay behind me, he shouted, eyes blazing. Oralia's mind whirled, heart pounding. She was a queen, a warrior trained to command armies. But now she was carrying something that no weapon, no strategy, no army could contain. The child inside her pulsed, a strange, glowing rhythm, almost like a heartbeat she could feel against her own. And for the first time, Oralia understood something profound. Whatever they were facing, they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future. The enforcers advanced, but the pressure inside her intensified, spreading warmth through her veins and into her armor. Oralia's eyes widened as the child shifted violently, responding to the threat with something instinctive, something untrained but terrifyingly powerful. Ethan caught her gaze. Whatever happens, we survive together. She nodded, teeth gritted, chest heaving. The child surged again, and Oralia realized, with a mixture of awe and fear, that the impossible was waking. And there was no turning back. The first strike was coming. The child was ready. And so were they. The chamber erupted in chaos. Council enforcers surged forward, weapons crackling with energy, their glowing eyes fixed on Oralia. She stood her ground, golden armor shining faintly under the bioluminescent fungi, but it was not her strength that would save them. The life inside her shifted violently, thrumming against her spine, and for the first time she understood its power. Ethan moved beside her like lightning, blade cutting arcs through the intruders. He was precise, fearless, his every movement a statement. No one takes her. No one takes this. Oralia followed instinctively, sidestepping attacks, deflecting energy bursts, but she barely touched her assailants. She didn't need to. A surge of warmth erupted from her abdomen, radiating outward in waves. The child, their child, reacted with instinctive force. Energy flared in arcs around her, throwing the enforcers off balance. Weapons overloaded, shields sparked, and for the first time Oralia laughed, not with joy, not with relief, but with pure disbelief. It's defending me, she shouted, gripping her stomach as the power pulsed through her. Ethan glanced at her, eyes wide with awe. I can feel it too, it's protecting you. The enforcers regrouped, but Oralia felt a strange calm wash over her. The child inside her was not just alive. It was aware. It was choosing to fight to protect. And she realized something terrifying and beautiful. They were no longer just survivors. They were a force the galaxy had never seen before. The golden armor gleamed brighter as the child pulsed, energy radiating outward in sync with her heartbeat. Aurelia moved forward, her movements guided by instinct, not strategy. Each step was deliberate, controlled, and yet wild with the raw power coursing through her veins. The enforcers faltered, unprepared for the sheer intensity of what they faced. Ethan fought beside her, his eyes never leaving hers. Every swing of his blade was met with a pulse from her child, amplifying his strength, shielding him from harm. Aurelia's heart thundered, and she realized the truth of their bond. They were no longer separate entities. She, Ethan, and the life growing inside her were one, an unbreakable unit. One enforcer lunged at her from the side, weapon aimed for her head. The child reacted instantly, a burst of energy throwing the attacker backward with a force that shattered stone. Aurelia gasped, hands shaking, but not with fear. With a gentle pressure of her palm, she felt the child respond, a subtle, intelligent rhythm that told her, "We can do this. Together." Ethan glanced at her, a crooked smile breaking through his grim expression. "They've never seen anything like this, have they?" "No," Aurelia admitted, feeling a swell of pride and awe. "And they never will." The final enforcer stepped forward, eyes glowing brighter than the rest, pulsing with raw authority. Aurelia felt the child's power respond, coiling and ready. She locked eyes with Ethan. "Now," she whispered. Together, they surged forward. Aurelia's golden armor shone like a beacon, her hand pressed against her abdomen as the child unleashed a pulse of energy that threw the enforcer to the ground, screaming. Ethan moved in perfect harmony, blades flashing, eliminating the remaining threats with a precision that felt almost preternatural. When the dust settled, silence fell. The chamber was littered with scorched stone and the faint hum of fatting energy. Aurelia sank to her knees, exhausted but unhurt, feeling the gentle, persistent movement of the life inside her. Ethan knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We did it," he whispered. "Yes," Aurelia said softly, hand pressed against her abdomen. "We survived together." The child shifted again, a tiny pulse that made her chest ache with a strange, overwhelming love. She looked at Ethan, tears brimming in her eyes, and for the first time allowed herself to smile, not as a queen, not as a warrior, but as something human, something whole. "We have a future," she said, voice trembling, "a future they can't take from us." Ethan's hand covered hers, warmth spreading through her. "And we'll protect it," he said, eyes bright with promise, "no matter what comes next." Aurelia looked down at her belly, feeling the subtle pulse of the child. She laughed softly, a sound full of wonder, awe, and uncontainable love. "Yes," she whispered, "together we are unstoppable." Above them, the city still burned with the distant fires of war. But below, in the forgotten archives, a new kind of power had been born. A power that was human, alien, and something entirely unprecedented. And for the first time in centuries, Aurelia felt something she had never felt before: hope. Because whatever the Council, the galaxy, or fate itself threw at them next, they would face it together. And the child, the impossible, miraculous life inside her, would lead the way. The pulse of energy throbbed once more, faint but insistent, as if whispering, "We are here. We are alive, and nothing will stop us." And in that quiet moment, Aurelia realized that the war had changed forever. Not just for her, not just for Ethan, but for all who would witness what they had become. They were no longer just queen and warrior. They were the beginning of something new. Something unstoppable. Something human.